Like I was doing research for an illicit history on the uranium cake lie, and I was watching Dick Cheney clips. And the thing about Bush and Cheney, though, is like at least Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, like at least they were like proper gangsters. Like they really were. You know what I mean? Like they would glare in the camera. They had some swag. And now it's like the alpha male thugs that do all this shit are like a marmalade-faced old mush-brained weirdo who's like, I was on the cover of Time magazine. I'm like a supermodel. And then their intellectual architect is like a crying hysteric from Canada. That's like emotional meltdowns about New York Review of Book art. Like, no Bush era people, no self-respecting Bush era person will be upset that a guy named Pankaj Mishra dissed them in the New York Review of Books. But yeah, never heard. What's a Pankaj homo? Never heard of him. Like that's how they're supposed to be. Not like I'll slap him seriously. Yes, of course. Well, I guess we'll touch on this. We're gonna have to go into this deeper. But Pankaj Mishra. Who's actually Pankaj he's a good writer.
Yeah, Age of Anger is not a bad book.
Age of Anger. He also wrote an interesting book about Buddhism, actually. But he does good work in. Pankaj Mishra he tracks intellectual history, which is like completely missing in today's world because like today's world is like dominated by people who have zero historical awareness and people who think in like 2-second cycles. But Pankaj Mishra basically did a New York Review of Books where he critiqued Peterson, but he sort of connected him to this history of basically like romantic / fascist fascination of like reviving spiritual myths to justify ancient hierarchies and counteract social justice, essentially. I'm simplifying it, but he saw this impulse in everything from like the Hindu Veda, Japanese fascism, obviously in 19th century in Germany and Italy, and even in some ways with Joseph Campbell. And he, it's a good. I mean, it's a tough takedown. And Jordan Peterson had a Twitter. Jordan Peterson messified his room on Twitter. And he said, "You call me a fascist, you sanctimonious prick." Which I like that. I like the phrase sanctimonious prick. You sanctimonious prick. If you were in my room at the moment, I'd slap you happily. Which has to be the most. Like, why does this guy, like, is this an Andy Kaufman thing? Like, is that not the most effete way you could threaten to hit somebody on the history of the universe? I'd slap you happily?
Yeah.
That almost sounds like he's got some type of fetish that Jamie would defend. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I'd slap you happily?
Also, he sounds like he spends a lot of time in his room. Get out of my room.
Get out of my room. Get out of my special YouTube room where I communicate with enraged virgins.
By the way, Jung was a friend of Alan Dulles.
Yes, the Dulles brothers were quite interested in Jungian psychology. So what he's doing, I think in some ways what Peterson's project is, he's trying to like suggest that these mystical archetypes are actually grounded in evolutionary biology. So he's trying to do a material synthesis. And then it's just like when it's all said and done, it's like when you think about the wind goddess and the lobster, the bottom line is you can't give kids inhalers because of the archipelago gulag. So my main point being is eat a protein-filled breakfast and cut down on the masturbation, which could be good advice for certain people, but is disastrous politics. But yes, he had a real. And then what else? He also said I like this because in this tweet he's actually. I didn't realize that he's quote tweeting himself.
Yeah. It looks very schizophrenic.
God damn, dude.
It's because he doesn't know how to thread.
He needs to take a break.
So he's just like yelling back and forth at himself.
And he's quote tweeting. So the quote tweet he's writing is, "You arrogant racist son of a bitch, Pankaj Mishra." I wonder where the racism part comes in.
There's It's convoluted, but Pankaj Mishra used a trope that was like the noble savage or something like that. And
he's saying that Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson was inducted into a First Nations tribe or something. So
weird that Jordan Peterson would react so extremely to somebody not taking part of his identity seriously.
Right. How dare you accuse me of, quote, harmlessly romancing the noble savage, unquote. That's how you refer to my friend Charles Joseph, who I've worked with for 15 years. That is actually really funny, because maybe Pankaj Mishra is being reductive and unfair and dickish. And maybe reducing the struggle to desegregate classrooms, courthouses, schools, stop murder, lynchings, castrations, and American apartheid to people feeling better about themselves while carrying around signs. Maybe that's a little bit reductive as well. Maybe that's... I
don't like this game anymore.
Maybe it's an arrogant, racist prick thing to do. Maybe you should ponder upon the phrase, arrogant, racist prick, bucko. Along with how dare you, and along with clean your room.
I hope he calls in again sometime.
Yeah.
It was really good the last time.
Yep. Yeah, but see, this is cool. I would read this book. Stand Up Straight, A History of Posture. I'd read that. That's interesting to me.
When I see that, though, I just think of it's him making his followers really easy to identify just in public because they have
like an artificially
bizarrely straight posture.
It's like on one hand their backs are totally overextended, but their hands are also stuck in the joystick mode because they can't quite bring them down.
George Washington was apparently like that. I'm reading a book. He was very like, I'm going to stick my back up to a stupidly amount. He's like the original Jordan Peterson.
Jordan, yeah, I think George Washington had other shit to do besides cry. His bios weren't like sat under a cherry tree and cried because other founding fathers just took him out of context, okay? Let's give some respect to somewhere where it's due, okay? They may be flawed. They may be hypocrites. They may have been feudal capitalists. They were still revolutionaries and founding fathers and men of action, goddammit. George Washington was like, and that's why you don't lie about me chopping down the cherry tree. Now please like my Patreon page. Subscribe here. Come on, man. Pankaj Mishra, you son of a bitch. It's also just such a funny name for that. Like, Pankaj Mishra, you bastard, you've done it again.
Well, it's funny because Peterson's biting off a lot of beef in this tour with... what's his name? Zizek and Pankaj Mishra, like people that I don't think he's really equipped to deal with.
He does not have it's like, dude, like don't. Yeah,
gonna go after Eric Foner next.
Yeah, man, like you should just dial it back and be like, okay, I don't know as much about politics. Here's what eat bananas because they help with muscle repair after lifting weights. Like that's what you should do. Give some fucking DMT shit with Rogan. Cool.
Well, maybe this will bring more real academics into the debate to show how empty and hollow he is.
I love Zizek wrote brilliant pieces about Peterson. And what was funny was that Peterson went on a tirade against him on Twitter. But apparently he was tweeting at a Zizek quote robot.
Yeah, he can't go on Twitter rants properly. Learn how to thread, bucko.
If you're going to use a medium, you should learn to use it properly.
Otherwise, you end up looking like a schizophrenic weirdo.
Otherwise, it looks like your self-help advice in a keto diet isn't exactly working, you histrionic freak. By the way, on my show last week, we played some clip of Jordan Peterson crying, and apparently one of his fanboys was like, oh, so you're just going to make fun of him crying? And if you're watching now, and I'll repeat it later, the answer is yes. Definitely. That's exactly what we are going to do.
It's funny.
Learn humor.
Sounds like we've got our own rules for living.
Yeah. Rule number 1, if you can't laugh at Jordan Peterson crying, then you've lost hope as an individual. Because then the individual is suffering. You son of a bitch. If you don't laugh at Jordan Peterson crying, I would happily slap you.